If you've ever felt disgruntled, rebellious, anxious, or marginalized, you are an existentialist. Are you watching closely? Existentialism was a philosophy that came on the scene in the 20th century. It was a slow uprising against traditional thought, specifically with what's called essentialism. Essentialism was a philosophy that was propagated by Plato and his student Aristotle, basically saying that everything and everyone possesses an essence. They also believed that your essence dictated who you became in life. That's why for the next 1,000 years in the West, if you were the son of a king, they believed that you had the right essence for what made one a king, for what made one royalty. And this was ultimately because God chose your path in life. You didn't have a say in the matter, you didn't have to think. All you had to do was look out the window, and if what you saw was a barn, a pair of horses, and some pigs, that's how you knew that your destiny was to live and die a peasant.
That's what God wants.
And so what Nietzsche set out to prove in his writings was that there was no inherent meaning in anything or anyone, that everything was pointless because God, the source of all essence, is dead, that we killed him through our immorality and debauchery. This view later became what's known as nihilism, which is essentially to believe that nothing matters. So when Nietzsche passed away, not only did he leave behind an inspiring boldness for dressing the upper lip, but he also, more importantly, left behind his attack against essentialism. Which brings us to this handsome devil.
That is some tasty stuff. That's from the bake sale that Lois was...
Seriously, you guys couldn't find anyone fucking normal for this? Anyways, wrestling with his own doubts about God and essentialism, when Sartre read Nietzsche, he was inspired by his nihilistic worldview and even adopted it for himself. He was also inspired by another German-born philosophy called phenomenology, which is an approach about philosophizing over everyday common experiences. Think of it as the act of describing what appears to you on a subjective level.
Pumpkin. Undertones of lavender, medium plus body. It's mostly pumpkin. There's so much pumpkin, it's like a Charlie Brown Halloween special.
That's your phenomenology. When Sartre first heard about phenomenology, he nearly fainted. And I know that sounds extra, but to be fair, you can sympathize with him more when you understand the philosophy that he was otherwise cornered into pursuing. We're talking about a philosophy called epistemology, which is basically the philosophical study of the nature, origin, and limits of human knowledge. With epistemology out the window, phenomenology and nihilism came together in Sartre's head and had a baby. His name is existentialism. In the same way that nihilism rejected essentialism, existentialism took it a bit further and actually flipped the framework that Plato and Aristotle were working with. So instead of your essence preceding your existence, the existentialists believe that your existence preceded your essence. So because there is no God-issued essence in your life, you no longer have any moral guidelines to adhere by, no one to answer to. You are free. And everyone in 1938 was like, fuck yeah, rock on, freedom! But then World War II happened, and the devastation that followed just crippled people philosophically, because it begged the question, if we're radically free, and this is what humans are freely choosing to do with their freedom, then what does that say about us as a human race? So after that time, people didn't know what to do or how to view themselves. The freedom they had was just too overwhelming. But regardless, Sartre sticks to his guns, still holding on to the belief that we are condemned to be free. And condemned, that's the key word, because Sartre well knew that this chasm of freedom that opened up to man wasn't one that promoted celebration or joy, but rather a well of anxiety. And this anxiety isn't being anxious over this thing or that, but instead it runs deep as a basic feature in our lives. So the next time you feel disgruntled, rebellious, or isolated, and if you find that those things are grounded in questions like, who am I, or what should I do, you're pretty existentialist.